Hello.
Hi everybody. We're just going to share this video. We won't be a moment and then we'll be right with you. Having very slow Wi-Fi connection here.
You've hardly got anything. I'll get rid of that.
I don't think I'm connected though. Okay, great. There we go.
Your music's playing. That's your phone.
Okay. So, there we go. We got this.
No.
We got this. There we go. Technology, technology, technology. Here we go. So, done. Let's do this. Hi guys, welcome. It's day 4.
Day 4. So we're almost towards the end of our 5-day series on regulation. So this is the part 1 of 3 different parts. So the first day we looked at an overview of regulation and we explored down regulation and the importance of it, and then we looked at how to upregulate and upregulate in a way that was kind of wasn't too much upregulation and had us still connected to ground from a kind of a place of some level of downregulation. And today we're going to look at multi-regulation, and we've kind of touched on this, that there's always kind of multiple frequencies going on. It's never really just up and down. We could say that there's a dominance of up or down, but there's always kind of multiple frequencies going on. And this is really important because really to have the versatility in life that will let us be effective in a really wide range of contexts. And that is life, right? Life is full of all kinds of contexts, and those contexts include us and how we feel. So we want to regulate appropriate to our resources. If we're tired, we need to downregulate, right? Because that is then what will rejuvenate us. And of course, external context. If we've got a work deadline that we've kind of got to hustle for, we need to be able to kind of push ourselves a little bit to kind of reach that deadline. And then of course there's people, and people are a whole kind of massive kettle of fish. There's all kinds of nuances within people, and how do we regulate appropriate to the different types of emotions that people display and the different things happening in relationships. And
navigating people.
And we're going to get a bit more into that tomorrow when we talk about co-regulation. But all of this creates such a wide range that we want to ourselves have range for. So I think a really important part of being human is an effective human is having wide range. That we can respond in all kinds of different ways. So having this kind of multi-regulation is really important. Let me pause there and see what you might want to add.
I think that, life so much is narrated by our capacity to be with sensation, to navigate sensation, and sensation, like if we think of ourselves as a kind of a sack of nerves, and kind of electrical impulses, our capacity to, and then those neural impulses are responding to the data that's around us, and also the data occurring within us. You could imagine, or you could think of us like kind of a sack of sensations and thoughts and feelings that are a lot of the time sensing and then reacting to the environment, and therefore our capacity to be with, to regulate, to navigate those sensations really does narrate the quality of our life, narrate our experience. And so when we talk about range, expanding our capacity to hold sensation, of course, you know, choosing situations that are not going to be having us be in constant sensation is ideal, right? But to be able, sometimes we just are, you know, like, wow, wasn't the pandemic like that? Wasn't there just so much constant bombardment of sensation, really, and nowhere to go? So that would have pointed out to a lot of people their capacity to be with sensation. So yes, expanding our range is definitely a worthwhile thing to do so that we can be with life as life occurs.
Yep, yeah, totally. So let's start to get a little bit into some more nuance of the type of range that we can develop. So I don't want to get too complex, but I want to kind of point to it a little bit and kind of touch on it. So just bear with me a tiny bit here, right? So we can roughly say that the brain is split into a back, middle, and front, and then a left and right. And the back brain, generally, we want to have a lot of down regulation. You know, that's kind of, the back brain is a lot more where our fear response kind of resides and where we rejuvenate ourselves. So we want the kind of the nice slow wave frequencies in the back brain. In the middle brain, we could say that we want some more kind of mid-range frequencies. It's more where the limbic brain is, which is kind of where a lot of our emotions will occur and our social engagement. And then the front brain is, you know, where a lot of our executive kind of control is, and we want more upregulation in the front brain.
Executive control, I just want to take out any jargon there. So that is like our ability to strategize, our ability to reflect on something from the past, our ability to plan, assess, these kinds of things.
Yeah, exactly. So already here we've kind of, roughly speaking, we've got multiple different regulations that gradually going from slow to fast in the brain. And this is where I super love neurofeedback, where you can actually measure these frequencies and you can learn what it feels like to be regulating the brain in different places. And this is a lot of kind of what I'm playing with, is to develop that level of agency in how we regulate ourselves. And just one tiny extra piece there, we could say the front left brain is more about convergent type of thinking, where I'm like focusing in, I'm making decisions, this is what I'm going to do, where I'm selecting from a bunch of options. And the right brain is more about divergent thinking, where I'm considering, well, there's this possibility and that possibility, and I can do that and this. And of course, they're both really important because I want to be able to consider my options, and I also want to be able to make choices. You know, so hopefully I'm not kind of overwhelming you with complexity, but I'm pointing to that even in the simple task of making a choice, I've got multiple regulations going on. You know, I need to kind of regulate my right brain in a particular kind of way to see the choices, you know, and then I'll upregulate my left brain to kind of lean in and choose one of those choices. So without kind of actually measuring the brain and getting that feedback, it's a bit hard to kind of, well, how do I do that? It's hard to know, and that's kind of what neurofeedback gives you. But what we can do is kind of approximate that with kind of embodiment, right? So for example, if I'm going to make a choice, I might lean in a little bit. I might go, okay, I'm going to lean in, I'm going to do this thing. We explored some of that kind of regulation yesterday. Whereas if I'm going to like look at different possibilities, I might lean back, you know, and we see this in our speech, right? Like take a step back and get perspective, you know, and I think it's more literal than we actually generally realize. You know, we take back, get perspective, and that's a form of regulation, right? Kind of slowing down, broadening myself, and then I can kind of lean in and regulate myself differently to start making a choice. So let me pause there, see what you want to translate. I've translated what I just said. Prem tends to translate me.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'm really interested in all the things you're saying, and the posture piece has just been so interesting for me personally in my journey around noticing where I would preference a particular position. And I used to preference leaning forward so much. I would be leaned forward a lot. And what I started to notice in practicing leaning back was at first I became quite anxious. I remember saying to you, you asked me just like, would I try it, you know, for a period of time, just literally sitting back. And I remember the night that we experimented with it for the first time, this was years ago. And I said to you, I feel like I'm falling. I feel like I'm literally falling through a tunnel and there's nothing holding me. Now that's a pretty extreme image, but it was true for a part of me because I was habituated to leaning forward. Now in terms of what you just said, in terms of the brain, that's really interesting to me, because I think I've had to practice divergent thinking. I've had to practice leaning back and considering other options. You know, and I do think that I'm really interested in astrology and human design and many like different typologies. And often, you know, the way that my typologies work is that I would be somebody who is really leaned forward. So this is the piece about expanding our range, right? There's nothing wrong with being that way. And it served me in a lot of ways, but it also has had me had a lot of blind spots and has had me in certain contexts which would have been different had I been able to have flexibility or a wider range. So to note that for me, leaning back took a whole rewiring process of being with anxiety to expand my range. And I love hearing you talk about the brain and what that looks like when you hook somebody up, to actually see what their brain looks like. You get the real data then of really what's really going on inside. The last thing I want to say just about the different areas of the brain. So the more triggered that we get, it goes like this. When we're not triggered, all three areas of the brain are working nicely together. And then as we get aroused, the first part of the brain to go off, so if this is the front of the face and this is the back of the head, the first place to go is this front one. And then we're left with the back two parts of the brain, or the mid and the back brain. And then the more aroused we get, the mid brain goes offline. And then we're left with the back brain. Now that's a very, very, very simplified version. And for Carly, who's intricately studying the brain and all the neurocircuitry, that would be far too simple. But I think that it's useful to understand in terms of noticing what happens when those different areas of the brain start to go offline, so you can assess where you are and what your range is typically.
Yeah. So like the whole topic of developing really nuanced embodiment and kind of nuanced brain agency is something that we teach, and like please engage with us if you want to learn more about that stuff, and there's some other awesome embodiment systems around there. So I'm not going to like fully go into that here. What I do want to explore though is when we're in a good kind of state of poise, we're in a good place of center from which we can easily move to a regulation that is going to be adaptive, is going to be appropriate to the context, is going to help us create what we want in a particular circumstance. Agility, yeah, totally. So I super like heart coherence type practices, so which basically means if I am breathing at a really even in and out rate, I will create a really balanced shifting of my heart rate. So when we breathe in, our hearts will speed up a little bit, and when we breathe out, our hearts will slow down a little bit. And so if we breathe at a really consistent in and out rate, and it's normally best to do about kind of 10 seconds, something like that, for both the in and out. So 5 seconds for the in breath and then 5 seconds for the out breath. If we do that, we'll tend to get a really nice kind of sine wave of the heart speeding up and slowing down. And that's what's known as heart coherence. So it's actually a measure of the balance of our nervous system, right? We've kind of got balance between up and down regulation. So practicing this type of breathing And interestingly enough, it tends to also increase this part coherence when we're in a state of positive affect. So if I start feeling a sense of gratitude, appreciation, I think about the things that I care about, or just light me up. It might be puppies, or it might be people I love, whatever it is. It also tends to create that kind of effect in the heart. So this is actually a really beautiful state, both physiologically and emotionally. It's a state where I'm in connection to what I care about, you know, and it's that when I'm in that state, I'm going to a lot more easily go, hang on, this is what I want to have happen in this situation. You know, I'm going to much more easily move to create the thing that I want. So it's this kind of state of coherence in which I'm going to be kind of proactively versatile. I'm going to proactively move in the direction that's going to help me create what I want.
I'd love to say something from a parts perspective.
Yeah.
From a parts work perspective, I like to bring in a parts work lens for people who are interested in parts work. So from a parts perspective, when we are in the state of the wise one within us, the one that feels curiosity, compassion, care, has clarity, then we would be in a coherent state. So heart rate variability or heart coherence practice is a way to actually induce that wise self, which is so exciting to me, that there's lots of different ways to actually enter into that state. And this is a really, there's a lot of robust research around heart coherence, also very exciting to me. That it brings the body into a coherent state, brings the heart and mind into a coherent state.
So we'll post a practice video doing some heart coherence breathing. The breathing part of it's actually quite simple. There's breathing apps, and we'll play with one in the practice. But then actually having some direction to help drop into some of the awareness of like what you put your attention on and how to breathe is helpful, and it's helped me quite a bit.
Just so you guys know, every day when we do these videos, we do like a lecture, if you like, and then we do or a discussion, and then we post a link in the comments about half an hour later, which has the practice that's relevant to today that we've uploaded to YouTube. So that will drop into the comments in about half an hour, and you have access to that to use it whenever you want. There's some good practices that we've done so far that are short, that if you're looking for a short practice to insert into your morning or into the middle of your day when you're at work, they're good. They're bite-sized, but they will take you into the state that we're talking about pretty quickly.
Yep. And then the last thing I want to say, and this is kind of really previewing tomorrow's talk around co-regulation, is that when we're in this kind of centered, self-connected state, it means that we're kind of, in a way, we're not so thrown around by our environment, you know, and that's where a lot of dysregulation occurs. It's when things that are coming at us, it's people saying unexpected stuff and being intense around us, and you know, just all the stuff that happens in life that kind of has us just at times feeling really out of control, you know, and kind of just pulled by the winds of life. And it's when, and of course that's inevitable to some degree, but if we're in this state of like, hey, I'm connected to me, I'm feeling in this kind of balanced state where I literally have more power in my heart. That's what a state of heart coherence is. I'm more at cause, essentially. I'm kind of more actually in a place of agency, connected to what's important to me, and therefore how I'm going to respond to what's going on. You know, and so this state of regulation is then, it's a generative state of regulation. It's not one which I'm going to kind of just too easily be lost in my environment, essentially.
I like thinking about it as in like the difference between being in my creator or being in my reactor, or from a parts work lens, it's like being in my wise self versus being driven or led by my parts. Yeah.
Sweet as. That's everything. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for joining us, for those of you who did. And Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yep. I just saw a comment from Kira. I love you too.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.